Okay, this is about making mozzarella, and it's a very simple cheese to make, but it can be frustrating. And this particular film is a little bit frustrating. There's the materials being sterilised, the equipment, and we're going to put some cool boiled water into some sterile ramekins, and that's for the addition of the chemicals. First of all, the rennet. We're using a gallon of milk, so therefore we're going to put about 5 drops of rennet into our ramekin for rennet. And then the other ingredient that we need is actually citric acid. And citric acid is important. Not only does it build up the acidity, but it reacts with the casein molecule. And so when you've added your citric acid, you let the whole thing dissolve, and then we're going to deal with the milk. So the best milk you can get is the best milk you can get, obviously. It has to be whole milk, and the lower the pasteurisation, the better. So if you can get it from a farm, that'd be really cool. But if you can't, then don't particularly worry. The best milk you can get. So having gone that far, we're adding our milk to our pan, and we're going to warm that milk up to 33 degrees Celsius. And this is quite important. It has to be at that temperature. If it's too cool, then the rennet doesn't work so well. If it's too hot, if it's over 42, 43, then the rennet will denature and not work at all. And we don't want to burn the milk either. So we're heating it slowly and making sure that the milk is actually 33 as exactly as we can get it. A degree or so either can change the flavour, so try to do your best to be very accurate with your milk. When you've got it to temperature, we're going to add our citric acid, mixing it in with the slotted spoon with an up and down and side to side motion, and then the same with the rennet, and give it a really good stir up for about 30 seconds. And having gone that far, then it's time to leave the whole thing alone, put the lid on it, walk away. Now I give mine at least 45 minutes. You can see there some small particles of cheese that have formed. That's because of the citric acid, the acidity. And it's the acidity that's the important thing, because without the acidity you won't get the stringiness. And that's the frustration for this particular batch of mozzarella, but we'll come back to that later on. Now, here I've jumped forward a little bit and I've cut the curd into 1 centimetre cubes, and we're going to cook these curds. Mozzarella basically is a cooked cheese, a bit like halloumi almost, but it's got the citric acid. If it wasn't citric acid, then it would be halloumi. So we heat that up to 40 degrees and leave that for half an hour. And I don't know if you can see that, but there are bigger amounts of whey between the curds. And then we're going to use our slotted spoon again to pour that whey, to separate that whey and keep the curds. So now we've got here on the left hand side a bowl with a sterilised net colander in it, and that's where the curds are going. And to save a bit of time, we've whizzed it on a little bit, but take your time over this. Make sure that you try and get as much of the whey out as possible, and then having done so, you'll have less whey to get rid of later on. The reasons for cooking the cheese is so that the curd itself loses whey also. So that's quite an important part of the whole process, so that we can find ourselves with much less whey to deal with later on. Now, having got that far, we're going to basically work our curds, and that involves pressing the whey through, slicing. The whey comes out at the bottom of the net, and you have to pour it away every now and again, because it's touching the bottom of your cheese. So that's the important thing. And then when it comes to having finished that process, or made a good start on finishing that process, we're going to add about a teaspoon of salt. The salt will draw up more whey, and then you'll lose salt because of that, because it will dissolve in the whey, but also it preserves and helps keep it. But the thing about mozzarella is it's best eaten fresh. So we don't have to keep this for a long time. Now, some of you might be asking, why did we not put a starter in this, a mesophilic or a thermophilic starter in? Because we really are going to get this cheese hot, and it will kill any bacteria or fungi that we add to it. So there's no point in adding any of those starters to it. The flavour comes just from the curd and a little bit of salt that we've added to it. So having done that far, we are going to now add our salt, and we're going to knife that in. We're going to put the salt on the top, and then we're going to actually knife the whole thing into the cheese, and then press and turn, press and turn, press and turn, so that we incorporate as much as we can. Whilst that's happening, I've got a kettle boiling, because we want to make sure that we've got some really hot water for the next stage. And it's quite an important stage. Now, I don't know if you can see this just by looking at it, but it looks slightly grainy. It's not quite smooth and mozzarella-y, if you like. And if I tried to pull it apart now, it would simply break. So what we're going to do is we're going to add all of that curd to our very hot water. Now, in that hot water, we've got some water and some whey. And then that's left for maybe a minute or two, and we then start to bring the whole lot together so that they can make ourselves little balls and knead it like you knead bread. And you notice I've put some gloves on. That's to protect my little delicate pinkies, because it really is pretty hot, and you don't want to burn yourself doing this. You can see again, and this is coming into the frustrating part, and we'll have the answer to this frustrating part later on. It isn't forming strings at this particular juncture, and the reason for that is because it's not, for some reason, acidic enough. Now I've made a ball, and now I'm just kneading it together, and we find that we're nearly there, because once you've made your ball like this, you are getting that shiny surface. So as you are kneading it, folding it over, pressing, folding it over, pressing, we're getting a shiny surface. So the cheese is nearly there, but it's not quite acidic enough to stop it from looking a little bit grainy. And the way that we're going to deal with that is actually quite simple. If it doesn't become stringy, then all you have to do is make your balls, put them in some whey and water and brine, leave them for a few hours, and then put them in the fridge overnight, and they will actually string up. So making your mozzarella is easy. It's not always perfect, but it does always give you great fun and a great product.